In a world of algorithms battling for everyone's attention, how can you make it as a creator? How can you stand out and do your creative work in a way that feeds your soul and grows your business without losing yourself? How do you balance the desire for creating something that is perfect and polished and aesthetic with the desire and sometimes the need to just create things even if they're messy? And how in all this can you even tell whether you're on the right track or not? How can you avoid being on a treadmill, being on a grind that is soul crushing only to at some point wake up and realize this is not what I wanted? Are there signs that you could be following all along? And is one of the keys to this perhaps the metaphor for life that you operate by? These are some of the topics that came up in my conversation with Diana Rogo, a good friend of mine who is a successful online creator, host of a women's circle, and a retreat and workshop facilitator. One of the things I love about Diana, and one of the reasons I wanted to have her on the podcast, is that apart from her success as a creator and as an entrepreneur, she's just someone who's really good at life. And this is also reflected in this conversation where we weave in and out of topics that are very grounded, practical, day-to-day, and then topics that are much more on the spiritual side, much more concerned with how to live a good life and how to thrive as a human being in general. I find that Diana always brings a special kind of magic, and I think you'll see what I mean in this conversation. Diana, nice to have you here.
Yes, thank you, Shane.
So the thing we were just talking about, as I was setting up this only semi-professional looking shot, is how important is aesthetics in the content you make versus just content, I guess. And of course, it's a niche thing, but you were saying like you want to do a challenge where you're uploading 3 TikToks a day.
Yeah.
What would that look like?
Right?
Yeah, yeah. That's how I started Quit by Healing.
Oh.
I think I did 2 a day.
Okay.
And it was super fast growth. Yeah.
So I did a challenge like that with 1 post every day for 3 months on TikTok, and I also grew quite a lot. Like I had no followers to 30,000, almost 30,000.
Yeah.
Which was huge for me because on Instagram I was not growing for years. So I was like, wow, you can actually reach that kind of audiences so fast. And then I did want to triple down on it and start doing more. But it was the format that was stopping me because I was doing these elaborate videos of, I don't know, like vlogs and just hitting the wall with everything that just came through my mind. And a lot of things didn't stick. And then I just kind of decided that this time, if I'm going to do it, I want it to be specifically raw and unfiltered and unedited and just like me talking, yapping.
Yeah. And that feels pretty edgy, right?
It feels edgy to me. It doesn't feel edgy for other people. And I feel like that is a reason why it might not work. I mean, it might not take off. It might not be, that incredible success story at the end of the day. But I feel like I would want to do this for myself more than for the results. I want to see if I can just get out of my own head and just...
Yeah. I mean, I've been procrastinating on doing something similar for a long time now because I also noticed that like I will easily come up with one idea for something that could be published every day. And I usually have at least one long voice note about such an idea every day somewhere, but I just never publish it because usually it almost like enters a pipeline. And maybe it turns into like 1 video a week or 1 article a week, but then there's like, let's say 7 to 20 ideas. They end up in the pile of backlog, right? Because my output is so much slower. I've also been thinking, well, what if I just recorded off the cuff, no editing, no extra stuff every day? But, and I think this is basically what it comes down to, it feels like my ideas are not worthy, right? It's like, the way it feels to me is, okay, this is a decent idea, but I would have to develop it and polish it and, I don't know, bring in references and do more research and so on before it's like worthy to be presented to the public, something like that.
For me, it's more about the way I feel when I publish. So I feel like my issue with publishing whatever I want to put out in the world is when there's a big distance from when I have the idea and when I actually put it out. If it's too far away, then I feel like I just lose the spark. I lose that grip of it,
Right.
So I feel like this would heal that by just, okay, the thought came into my mind, and there is like literally no distance to when I actually put it out, when I'm hyped up about it, when I have that moment of
Yes.
clarity. So I feel like that would be, the fastest way for inspiration to just be materialized. And I do have like a spiritual take on this, where ideas come to the people who can actually put them in the world. So I feel like it's almost like a duty to put them out. But I stop myself, right? Because it has to be a certain way. And then in the stopping of the idea, it feels bad in my body. And then it feels bad to work on it. And it feels bad to post it. And then the whole thing feels like shit. And of course, I don't want to do it if it feels bad, right?
Yeah, I think you're right that it does sometimes feel like these ideas are landing on me. And I do feel like I would like to be a better channel for this stuff that is coming to me. But yeah, it's this weird dilemma, because I often also feel like, well, this idea is so valuable, it will be worth spending a lot of time and effort making something very polished.
Yeah.
But I also have the experience of doing that, of making the attempt of like adding whatever it is, it could be the aesthetic factor, like how do I make this cinematic and entertaining and engaging and a well-paced story, or it can also just be, let's say, content-wise, how do I flesh this out with better examples and more resources or whatever. But often the end result is that it doesn't actually feel like it got better. And that is a big frustration for me, where if it were the case that I'm like, okay, if I'm going to put a week of effort into this, it's going to be great. That would be one problem. But it feels like, no, it's actually potentially going to be worse, including the thing you said where it's like, by the time this is done, I'm not even excited about it anymore. This is tricky.
It is tricky. Where in your life do you feel like this is easy?
Yeah.
To bring the idea and to put it forth as is, and that is okay and good enough.
Yeah. In person, always, always, always. Like when I'm on a coaching call with someone or just talking to someone or I'm leading a workshop or something like that, this problem just does not exist.
Same.
Yeah.
So how can we translate that?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So if you think about it, so let's figure out what is the experience when we're in this situation. So let's say we're running a workshop or something like that. My lived experience of that is that I said the problem doesn't exist because it's almost like the part of me that is sitting here worrying about, is this good enough? What should I do?
Yeah.
Is not present when I'm teaching, right?
Yeah. It's just not in the room, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So maybe if we go live.
Oh, okay.
Instead of trying to do the bits and pieces of that content that you can then criticize yourself for.
Right.
Or maybe if we just don't look at the thing, right?
Yeah.
We just post and then goodbye, good night.
So I tried something like that actually. So I was working with a team of people where that was an option where I could be like, look, you guys record and edit, and after the recording session, I'm just not going to be involved anymore. Some decent content came out of that. One of the things we did was that I would just sit there and it'd be a topic and they'd just ask me questions about that topic. And so I'd just talk about it, and then it's like, okay, we have a half an hour of me talking about this, and you cut it down to like maybe a 10 or 15 minute video. And that kind of semi-worked. I think that depends a lot on how the questions are asked. There's something, so this is also something about podcasts or like this conversation, right? What we're doing here is very unstructured. I don't have a set of questions, and we're not doing the interview type thing.
Yeah.
And that is quite deliberate because I've gotten really allergic to this. There's like a flavor of, I don't know, it's like artificial, where, you'll have someone on a podcast doing the podcasty voice and asking the podcasty softball questions. So tell us about how you came up with the idea for the brilliant new best-selling book that is currently on sale on Amazon. It's like, and then you have this weird fake sincerity,
Yeah.
that I've gotten really allergic to when I see it or when I hear it. I'm like, sometimes, like literally I will, start listening to a podcast and I'm like, I'm interested in this topic, but I cannot listen to you guys be so fake about it.
Yeah.
I think this is part of it, where it's like, depending on how the question is asked, it can feel like, You're not really asking me this. You don't actually care, you know. You're just kind of just setting me up to talk about my story or something, which doesn't help me get into it usually.
Yeah.
But if I have someone there who's actually struggling with a problem and actually sincerely presenting me with something, then usually I can get into that mode.
Okay, I can relate. Has it ever worked for you to imagine that across the camera there's this one specific person?
I've tried that and I keep forgetting about it.
Okay.
I think, yeah.
Did it work when you tried?
I think it's, well, I would say no, because it's like I can't stay in that mode because I have to keep reminding myself of it. In principle, if I could get into the mode, what if I was just explaining this to my friend or to one of my clients or something? Yes, but it seems like I tend to fall out of that mode.
Yeah. I just left a voice note on my Women's Circle WhatsApp group earlier, and I just said like something that was wonderful and nice and concise and clear,
Yeah.
you know, and I had no previous idea of what I wanted to say, but it just came out like the most eloquent thing ever. And then I kind of thought about it like, I want to take this like publicly, like why just keep it for the inner circle, right? And then I started thinking of like, how should I frame this? Like, what is my hook? Like, what is like,
Yes.
and it's so fucked up because,
Yes.
yeah, and there are people who have a lot of success with these tools, right? The perfect storytelling
Yes.
arch and everything. So if it works for them, I keep telling myself that it's going to work for me. But every time I do it, I get so much more caught up in that part than the actual message. And I feel like a good hack would be to actually send the thing first to the inside group, to the actual person you want to help, and then literally take the same thing and post it. I think that could work.
I have a very similar problem where sometimes I will use my voice recorder or, voice record to ChatGPT or something. I'm like, okay, here's an idea I have for what could become a content piece. And then I get into it and I'm like, actually, that was perfect. That was it. And this is the problem. If you've recorded it to ChatGPT, there's no audio, right? So this is why actually I prefer recording into a voice recorder. So I actually have the audio, because sometimes I'm like, I can't improve this.
Yeah.
This was it. But it's this kind of low stakes situation. At one point I actually pulled over as I was driving my scooter in Bali, and I actually pulled over to record a message, because it's like while I was driving, I had this idea just came to me.
Yeah.
And I was like, I have to record this. I pulled over and recorded it on the side of the street, which is also one of the, it's super noisy. There's constantly traffic going by and so on. So, but the essence of what I was talking about that was it.
Yeah.
And any attempt I make to like replicate that is just not going to be as good. So maybe I should just upload the one with the traffic noise. I don't know.
I think so. I mean, you can actually just put it as a back audio thing. It doesn't have to be like a talking head to the camera. It can just be like a voice over, right?
I think this is the challenge, right? Like, how can you be in almost like your best mode? How can you be in that flow state, or in that, whatever you want to call it? And even setting up the camera, and I think this is one of the downsides of having high production value as well. As soon as because you end up spending half an hour, even more, setting up all this stuff. And then like, what are the chances that that the spark is still alive by the time you hit record, And I think, of course, when you see other people and they're like, okay, they do really good hooks and storytelling and so on. One thing that came to mind, so there's a fellow called Jason Fladley, who is a really particular guy. Like, if you look him up now, you'll see him doing, I think his thing is like he does webinar selling, and he teaches people how to sell on webinars. And he's made a fortune doing this. But I saw him, he started with internet marketing stuff around the same time I did. And I saw him like posting in the forums and whatnot where I was hanging out when he was totally fresh. And I kind of saw his career, and I went to a workshop with him at one point. And so he's been obsessed with selling for a long time. And he can off the cuff create a sales pitch for anything that is incredibly good.
Wow.
And it was just funny to see, to observe him as he was talking to people, and they're asking me, oh, how should I do this? And he will just like rattle off a really good sales pitch right away. And he just has, it's so embedded in his psyche how to sell. This came to mind because that's, one way to have a really good story arc in your video is to sit down and design a story arc and write it out and do revision after revision after revision until it's like, right?
Yeah.
Another way is to just practice a lot until you're a really good storyteller.
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to get to that same
Yeah.
point. Yeah. Maybe it's just the exercise, right? Because at one point you start forgetting about all of the production pieces,
Yeah.
right? You're just talking, you enjoy talking, and I feel like you could get out of your own way.
Also, I think one of the reasons why I'm trying to actually get away from polish and production and so on is that we are really in what we're watching right now is the death of the generic.
Okay.
And I think one problem with sitting down and crafting a story arc is that there's a good chance that you get closer and closer to the kind of thing that ChatGPT would create. You know?
Yeah.
And I think that's also the problem. Like, you know, when you see podcasters do podcasty things and YouTubers do YouTubey things and bloggers do bloggy things, all of those things are recognizably, you know, the YouTube voice, the YouTube cadence, the YouTube story arc. We're not that far away from just being like, hey, generate a video of me talking about this product in a YouTubey style, and it will do it better than I can. So I don't need to be doing that.
Yeah.
And I think that, and you know, maybe this is almost like you're retreating into, you're trying to find the gaps of what is not going to be replaced by AI. But I do think that the authenticity of just a spontaneous conversation, the authenticity of something that's unplanned and messy is probably harder to replicate. Or at least I'd rather, even if it's as replicable, I would rather have that feeling of this is real than the feeling of, oh, this is super polished.
I think it does come down to the relationship you have with the people you perceive are watching you.
Right.
Because if you think of, I don't know, a young pop star, you know, I have someone in my mind who's like this girl who's really pretty, and she feels like all her fans are watching her and expecting her to be there, and she just wants to be nice to them because she gets so much love from her audience. And then it's kind of like this relationship that keeps growing in satisfaction for both sides. And I thought about, you know, how I act when I'm with my parents on their group chat. I'm like so audacious. Like I can, you know, write with all caps like I'm the coolest person on earth and be like honest about it. Like in that moment I was so fucking proud that I just let it out. And then there are other moments where I accept that like everything sucks and right now I'm having a tantrum and then I'm feeling really sick and then I'm very disappointed and now I'm crying and I let all that flow of emotion be seen by my family and I feel like that is safe. But then there's like this unclear border of who am I safe with and who am I not? And when did it start feeling unsafe to be perceived? So, okay, with my family, I'm fine on these topics. And other topics that include maybe my opinion about how I was raised, which is all of a sudden not fine to talk there, right? And then when you just go out there and talk to like millions, potentially people, you don't really know who's going to perceive you. So that's where I feel like we start deluding ourselves because to make our message be appropriate for my kindergarten teacher, my mom, my brother, the people who are my clients, the people who used to be my clients from another business, and so forth, it's impossible, right? To make all of them happy. So I do feel like all these marketing gurus do have a point in deciding on who is your target audience and only talking to them. But I feel like we need to find a specific type of person who we actually want to talk to and who we expect some kind of appreciation from, you know? Because if I go into my videos and I start imagining, so this is my perfect client, then I start getting needy. I want them to buy from me, right? And then it's the salesperson coming out, and that's not authentic. So I feel like it really does come down to how safe you can be perceived and how we can hack our way into doing that more efficiently.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point because there's two things going on there. like you were saying, you can have a target customer or whatever in mind, but then you can still be super inauthentic, and you can be, all weird and manipulative. Really, it's like, I'm gonna say things that impress you and that please you, and then you're just kind of being weird and gross. Actually, like if someone treats you like that in real life,
Yeah, it would be
that's pretty
awful.
gross. So, which interestingly, a lot of marketing goes exactly there, right?
Yeah,
Be this weird sycophantic manipulator,
yeah.
and you'll get money,
Yeah.
right?
And you can feel it. I mean, you can tell it.
But I think it's interesting because you can still be considerate of who am I talking to, and remain authentic. And maybe a way to frame that is like, I am, in a way, it's almost like I'm relating to you and also to me at the same time. So I'm not abandoning myself. I'm not discarding my own interests and my own whatever authentic quirks and so on in service of just focusing on you or an end goal of getting money from you. But I am perhaps, like you said, in the family group chat, some things are just, would also maybe be just inappropriate. Like, it's not necessarily a terrible sin against your authentic self, and you should be able to say everything in your family group chat. It's like, no, maybe some things belong in a different group chat, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. So there's a line there where you can still be authentic and be mindful of who you're talking to. And I think online is especially hard to find that line and stay on it, because it's super hard to not be influenced by what does well and what doesn't do well.
Yeah. That's the death of any starting creator, right?
Yeah.
I feel like so few people actually make it past that feedback loop.
Yeah.
But the ones that do tend to be the ones that have the most fun with it. And then the question comes down to, how can you intentionally have fun? Like, can you plan for having fun with something that doesn't feel like fun? Like, is it something you can actually make fun, or does it just feel like fun and then you get into that mood and then it's just easy? Do you feel like it's something you can create?
That's such a good question, because I think it's not black and white. Because, okay, how would I approach this? I would say that out of all the things you could possibly be doing, there are some things where trying to do them in a way where you're having fun might just be a big ask. Where it's just because there's certain things that we have an affinity for, that we're interested in, that we're curious about, and certain things that are the opposite of that. And being like, okay, do those things. Like, this is kind of the experience I had in school. Let's say, it's like, you force yourself to learn this somehow. It's like, yes, of course, I would learn more and more easily if I made it fun, if I was playful, if I was curious. But if I really just cannot be bothered about this topic, it's very hard to force that. So I would say, like, step one, like, select the right playing field. And then step two, I think there's a lot about how you approach it. You can approach anything as a grim task that must be done. And I think often, and certainly men have this problem often, like, there's a certain aesthetic in being, the brooding, suffering, look at me working hard, right?
Yeah.
And we can get very attached to that aesthetic, where you might end up doing something that you could be having a lot of fun with, but you're doing in this grim pursuit mode. So, you know what I mean? It's a bit of both. I think if you're playing in the right field, it matters a lot whether you simply allow yourself to have fun doing it.
I just thought about when it was fun for me. And it was always fun when I had certainty that it was going to land. If I know it's going to be a success, for sure, then I can't wait to do it, because it's just getting me closer to that success faster.
Okay.
So that it is very much result related. And when I feel like I don't really know if it's going to take me where I want to go, and I don't want the disappointment to come in faster, then I dread the task.
Okay. Yeah. You want to put off that experience of like, oh no, it didn't work.
Yeah. So I do feel like it's kind of like a catch-22. Like, it's gonna land if you're having fun, and if you're only having fun because you think it's gonna land.
I was about to ask, how do you know whether it's going to land or not?
I don't know, it's just a gut feeling.
Ah.
I feel like it's clearly something I made up in my mind. There are other things where I do have like kind of like certainty because I want the results so much that I don't really care how much I have to put in to get there. So then it's just like, okay, just do it. But other places where I'm not that sure, and maybe I don't know, maybe it is a sign of that's not for me, you know?
Yeah, how this gut feeling that you have about whether something's going to land or not, like how, what's the hit rate? Do you tend to be right about it?
Most of the time, yeah.
Interesting. So then, do you think it would make sense to just stop doing the things where the gut feeling says it's not going to work?
So it's the first time I'm thinking about this at the moment, at least from the content framework. I think it could work. But then that is quite the opposite of what I just said of putting in the reps and doing the volume, right?
Well, but even there, like what if, even if you're publishing every day, that could be part of the process of like only do the stuff that pass a basic gut check. It's like, do I actually want to talk about this?
I'm doing that filtering in the moment.
Yeah. You know, another thing about this, what it reminded me of, like I love speaking on stage. And I always make it entertaining for me.
How?
When I'm on stage, I have fun. How? One is generally I will try to subvert the rules or the expectations in some form. Right?
Okay.
And basically, the stricter the rules of the whatever the thing is I'm at, the more motivated I am to subvert the rules. I'm like, how can I bend the rules so much that I want the organizers to be a little bit upset.
Oh wow, you're being a little brat and you love it.
Yeah, but I want them to be a bit upset, but also like, oh fuck, that was really good, but damn it, he wasn't supposed to do that. That's what I'm aiming for. I probably shouldn't say this. I'm never gonna get invited anyway.
No more speaking giggles, sorry. Make you authentic.
but it's like, well, that's just one of the things I get like a bit of. I find it a bit delightful, but it's also because sometimes it's quite open-ended. But I'm also thinking like, what are these people expecting? What is the vibe of this thing, and how can I want to be like slightly shocking or slightly just, you know, I want to play with that, and it came to mind because that's one of the ways I make it fun for me. But also it means that ultimately I don't care that much whether people are like, oh my god, that was the best talk ever. Or whether they're like, oh, this was a bit weird. Yeah. As long as I, as long as I get to have fun, you know, if I get that effect, if I can see like people are waking up, especially you know, if it's a place where there's lots and lots of talks happening, which is often the case at conference and stuff. Like, can I get the room to wake up at some point? And even if people are like, oh, that wasn't, you know, I don't have to please everyone. That's fine. But if I can be like, yeah, I got you, then I'm already satisfied. So I think I'm also in that sense looking for an outcome, but in a way I'm probably making it easier for me to succeed. If I was there being like, I have to give the best talk there, that would probably make the whole thing feel a bit more tense and maybe less fun.
Yeah, but it is the certainty that you can wake the audience up. So you go up stage expecting to hit your mark.
Yeah, it's the challenge, right? That's what I'm trying to do. Yeah.
But it's also again in real person.
It's in real life, yeah.
Where we already know we have fun doing that.
That's true, yeah.
What if we bring in like an audience when we film? You know, you can bring in like 5 fangirls.
Yes, you know what? 5 fangirls, great, yeah.
Cheerleaders.
Yes.
The image of having like really pretty girls in the back of the camera.
I think actually, if I'm going to bring in 5 pretty girls, I feel like they should be on camera.
Yeah, probably.
The video would do better if I'm not on camera. It's just 5 pretty girls sitting there and me talking in the background. But yeah, so one of the things, actually, this is, I want to find a way to do this. This is a relatively recent idea, but I think what gave me the idea was I saw Peter Crone makes videos like this. So he's, I don't know what he is. He calls himself the mind architect or something. But he does these events or whatever where he'll be sitting there and there's an audience of people and someone in the audience will ask a question or come with a problem and he kind of talks them through. It's almost like live coaching.
Yeah.
And some of the videos are really nice, very touching, and good stuff. But I just saw that and be like, I could do that. I could definitely do that. That's the context where the best of me would come out.
Yeah.
So I have been thinking like, oh, how do I manufacture this? That's actually exactly what you're saying. How do I essentially record my content with an audience?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be cool. I feel like I would be good at that, and it would be also way more fun than me sitting here going, oh, what content do I create? Me by my lonesome, and I'm talking to my phone or whatever, or talking to my expensive camera. It doesn't really matter, right?
Yeah.
It's this kind of lonesome pursuit which I've gotten a bit tired of, versus a room full of people. And it doesn't even have to be full, but here's a group of people who have real problems that I can really help them with. That would be way more fun.
There's also this format where people coach other people online.
Yeah.
Where you have the laptop in the front of the coach or whatever, and then they're engaged in that conversation and they don't really mind being filmed. Is this something you feel would work for you?
The problem I see with that is that the experience of the coachee is that they're talking to me, and the audience is invisible to them. And even if obviously I would tell them, this is being recorded, we'll make content out of this, but that will immediately distort and change. So it's almost like a one-on-one interaction that's not really a one-on-one interaction.
You could also only publish the parts where you are giving the feedback or the advice, right?
Yeah.
I mean, most of the time that's the case because they, keep their privacy, the coachee's privacy. But I feel like that would be so much easier to implement, right? You don't really need actual people in a room.
It would be logistically easier, yeah. It'd be more fun.
Yeah.
It's more fun in a room with people.
Yeah, like Tony Robbins vibes.
Tony Robbins vibes, yeah. Maybe we should do that. I feel like we could make that happen, right?
I mean, we're going to do an event either way, so.
Yeah.
So we just need like a good camera crew that can basically film the entire thing.
Well, I like the word "just" in that sense. It's doing a lot of heavy lifting.
You're just gonna do your part. Don't worry
but yes,
about
no, this is possible. Yeah. This is definitely possible. Yeah.
All right, that's an idea.
I like that. We can do our very own Tony Robbins setup.
Date with Destiny.
Fuck, is that the thing that he?
Yeah. That's one of the seminars he does. I haven't been to that one. I've been to the other one, Unleash the Power Within.
Okay.
And I do want to do like a Date with Destiny thing.
You do?
Yeah. I grew up with Tony Robbins. I think he had like a very important impact on my teenage years.
Interesting. I didn't know that you were a Tony Robbins stan.
I don't know if I'm that much nowadays, I mean, I feel like that was kind of the gateway for me into personal development.
Yeah.
And I feel like he did lay a lot of foundations of you can actually take control of a lot of things and you are responsible for a lot of things. So I feel like it put the foundation, and then I started building on more specific niches and different takes and my flavor of what I feel works for me. And then, add the layers of spiritual pursuits of like what do I actually believe in and ethics and all of that. But yeah, I feel like stepping on the shoulders of giants is something that he says a lot, and I feel like that's so funny because he is literally a giant.
But he deliberately uses a lot of like giant puns and stuff, no?
Yeah. I guess that's part of his brand, right?
Yeah. Or maybe it used to be more than now, but.
Yeah, I was thinking like what would be our thing?
What would be our thing?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, as a tandem, I don't know. Yeah, like, I mean, one of my things, but I don't know how to make it palatable. One of my things is love and violence.
Oh yeah.
But it's we could be love and violence.
That's like a rock band name already.
It is kind of right. It has a nice ring to it, but I think it takes a lot of explaining, so it's not that great. But actually, I was curious.
But it is the awakening part where you're like, what violence or what is this? Yeah. So it's provocative in the way that you like to provoke. I feel like the snake is also one of your symbols that you can use, especially because your tattoo is so visible.
Yeah, that's also, it takes so much explaining. Like, especially like I might get another one and they are very meaningful to me,
Mhm.
but it's also not easy to explain. But maybe it's more like the mystique.
Yeah, that's part of it. So I should get like a dove, or what is kind of like a visual representation of love?
But what would your thing be if you were to get a gigantic tattoo that is spiritually meaningful to you? What would it be?
Damn, what a hard question.
You have to be careful how you answer because you're going to get it live on air.
And then I have to tattoo my hair back, right? Well, we already talked about triangle, right? Well, I think I keep coming back to the same conclusion that emotions lead the way, and they're the compass, and pleasure is something that is not hedonistic, but it's actually quite spiritual to let yourself enjoy. So it would be something around pleasure, but it's hard for me to pinpoint how that would look at the moment. There's a lot of talk around flow, and I do associate flow with that feeling of enjoying yourself, which is usually portrayed through water, but yeah, doesn't really cut it. The voice note I sent the ladies this morning was around your metaphor for life. What is the metaphor you usually use for life? And we had that on our last meeting this month, and it was kind of like the gateway for the 1 month break. Okay, what is your metaphor for life? What are you using nowadays? And my metaphor for life has always been life is a game. And I keep going back the same thing. Like, you have these cards, you can change the cards, you can change the table, you can change the game, but you can do something with the cards if you're in the right spot. And then I asked the girls to come up with a new metaphor that they would want to embody. Like, if you could choose like any metaphor, like what would you like life to be like? And at the end of the circle, I was brainstorming my own take, and I was like, you know what? What if August my was like a supermarket? Like, you just go to the supermarket, and what if life is a supermarket? You have all of these choices, right? You can go to the aisles, you see what people are doing, you see what options you have, and then you can be excited to go get your favorite chocolate, and you get to decide what is your favorite flavor. And if you don't know, you can just try the thing, and next time you're coming to the supermarket, you're going to choose something differently, and that's fine. And I love the fact that it has a price tag, right? Because when you're going to the supermarket, you don't expect things to be free, You're willing to pay the price. And some things are more expensive than others. And you're willing to pay the price if it's worth for you, right? So if I want like a fancy perfume because it just makes me feel very sophisticated, then that's fine. I get to have that pleasure in my life, and I do want to pay the higher price because I want it to be less accessible. So why am I pulling away from, more effort, more work, more time in other things in my life where I feel like it shouldn't be this hard, right? I'm just willing to pay the price. I'm just going to check out, and that's going to be fine. And I'm trying to embody that. So I don't know, maybe I'm going to get like a big shopping cart on my back.
A big shopping cart tattoo. Yes, I love it. That is really good. That, like, I was struggling a bit with this metaphor. I was like, where's this going? But the price tag thing, that makes so much sense. Because I also like how, like, in a supermarket, it's quite casual, right? It's like you said, everything has a price. The prices are different.
Yeah.
Nobody's really making a big fuss about this. And I do think that often in life, it's exactly like that. It's like, look, for me, one of the things is, every action has consequences. It's just part of it. And it's kind of weird to make a big fuss about, oh my God, why am I suffering the consequences of my actions? Just like getting to the checkout and being like, why am I being asked for money? It's like, that's how this works.
Yeah.
So almost like taking the emotional charge out of it, just being like, no, this is just how it works. I really like that. That's pretty powerful. And also the life as a game metaphor, for me, I would say this served me very well for a long time. I was thinking of it more like a role-playing game. When you're playing a role-playing game, it's all about how do you develop your character, right? And it's like you're doing stuff to level up, and then you're investing points in different character traits and different skills in order to succeed in the game. And for me, that is a really good metaphor for how life works, where it's just like so much of it is based on your character. And I think sometimes we are too focused on other factors, where it's just like, no, the difference makes, who are you when you show up to this situation? Like, where did you invest your skill points, right? And if you want a different outcome in this situation, I think often the best thing to do is go do a bit of a grind to get some more skill points, right? Invest skill points in the right thing. That is the solution. Especially, I feel like we're often looking for some kind of a shortcut where the solution is just, no, just skill up. Just like we were talking about, the one option to have great storytelling content is practice until you're a great storyteller.
Yeah, pay the price.
Yeah, exactly. And that's part of it. It's like, well, you're going to do this. It's going to feel awkward in the beginning. You're going to be disappointed with your results at first, and then over time you get better and so on. That's just how that works, right?
The movie metaphor also is very useful in this case, because when you're watching a movie, you do like the character development part. You do like when they're building up the courage, when they're building up the skills. You want to see that part because you want the hero to deserve it, right?
Yeah.
So then it is kind of satisfying to see that they're going through all of this struggle, and it just didn't happen by chance. And I also love this because there's a TikTok trend with this, of doing it for the plot, of just doing things because the plot has to have like adventures.
Yeah.
Some things have to happen in the character's life for it to be interesting enough. Of course, people on TikTok do it because they want to have interesting content, and of course, but I do feel like for most watchers who are not creators, it is such good advice, especially for the new generations that are so stuck in their phone and in their minds, because they're not out there living, right? So if they're kind of framing it like, I'm just gonna do it for the plot, gonna do it to see what happens, then they get out of their own way and they open themselves to being surprised.
Yeah. This reminds me of a metaphor for life that I actually have not, I'd forgotten about. But for a long time, I was thinking about, essentially, I want to live my life in such a way that it'd be worth writing a book about at some point, which is very similar idea. It's like, well, if I'm not doing anything interesting or extraordinary, not taking risks and so on, then, well, what am I going to write a book about, right? It's like, that's not interesting. And of course, I feel like every life will have, you'll have a few years where in your biography, you just skip past that, Oh, from, 1995 to 2000, whatever, nothing much happened.
Yeah.
And then something interesting happened, right? That's normal. It doesn't have to be nonstop action. But I've definitely made many decisions like that, or often, also just did things made relatively big life choices without overthinking it too much, because I was just like, well, it seems like adventurous. At the very least, it's going to be interesting. It's worth doing. Yeah, I can't say I ever regretted any of those.
Yeah, but then if you get hooked on the dopamine you get from doing these big life-changing things, you're never really building.
Not necessarily. So, first of all, I would say that if you get hooked on the dopamine of doing stuff in real life, you are 90% of the time you're better off than people who get hooked on dopamine that comes from screens.
Oh, yeah, for sure,
Right.
for sure.
But also, I mean, for me, part of the adventure is also, like things like entrepreneurship, which is something that to me, it's something you take on also as a big skill development journey. Just being like, right now, I have no idea. When I started, I was like, I have no idea about any of this. I don't even know if I can do this. I'm just looking at unknown unknowns. But let's see if I can pull this off.
Yeah.
And then getting into the adventure of and knowing this is going to be a many years journey of trying things and failing at things and building skills and building connections and so on and so forth. Which is part of the, I don't know how directly that relates to dopamine, but that's like the adventure I chose to go on.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I just realized I get this massive kick out of being the least qualified person in the room and being like, oh my God, like I'm sitting here and I'm not supposed to be here, but I found my way, I found the back door and I'm here. And I feel like that is a good feeling to chase in any endeavor, because you don't have to be the most qualified. That is a limiting belief.
Yeah.
And you can hire the qualified people if you want to. Whenever I catch a glimpse of like, I shouldn't be sitting at a table with all these designers who have done so many years of hustling to get here, and I'm just here. Like, everyone hates me at the moment, right? And I'm so aware of how much of an imposter I feel to them. And it's almost like I reframed imposter syndrome as being something that I want. Because I do feel like an imposter, but then I feel like I got away with it.
Yeah.
I succeeded in being this imposter. Like, I'm not questioning. I am the imposter. I honestly shouldn't be here, but I didn't need permission from anyone, and it just came. And I keep saying this on and on, like, why do we keep waiting for permission? And I've been guilty for it for so many years, until I actually started just going after what I wanted and finding like other doors or other entryways and using my own strengths. Just yesterday or the day before, I went to this meetup with therapists. Most of the women there were either part of my women's circle or they knew about it, and they basically invited more people who run support groups. And I was the only one who was basically not in any type of field that was in social work or, psychology or anything like that. But I had the biggest group. I had the most passion talking about it. I got the most questions from the audience. And it was kind of like almost the main thing of the night, because I was the black sheep of the entire thing.
Yeah.
And it felt so good. And I held myself back for years because I was not, a therapist. And now I just invite in therapists when I need them. And that was never an actual problem. And I'm so aware now that I keep doing this to myself in so many different fields. And whenever I catch myself in the fact that it's actually a big strength of doing it without having the qualifications, and that is what is going to be inspiring for other people. That is basically me taking my power back, because I'm not expecting permission from anyone else than myself. And I get to grant that.
Before we were talking about how everything comes at a price.
Yeah.
You put in the work and all this kind of stuff. And in contrast to that, I feel like there is a balancing act to do here. Because sometimes that's true. Sometimes the way to get there is to put in the work, pay the price, all this kind of thing, go on the long journey. But it's also worth asking yourself, what if this were easy? What if this were fun? Because you've talked about this where we can almost make an unnecessary heroic journey for ourselves.
Yeah.
When really you could just do the thing right away.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you know which is which?
I feel like I go on that heroic journey when I haven't really made up my mind. When it's not a certain decision, then I need the heroic journey to figure out if I want it or not. And when I'm just convinced, like, this is what I'm doing, this is how it's gonna go, then I do feel like things start happening from beyond myself to make way. I find the right people, like everything falls into place. So it does come down to having that clear decision within me. Now the question comes down to how or why do some things feel like, okay, this is how it's gonna go.
Yeah.
I mean, do we get to like this tipping point of where we're so frustrated that we don't have patience with ourselves anymore? Or is it something that comes from inspiration? What do you think?
I'm not sure either, because for me, for most of my adult life, what worked for me was this kind of force of will type thing.
Yeah.
Or I would decide this is what I want to make happen, and then one of my things was always like, oh, I'll just outwork whoever else is competing for this, right?
Yeah.
And that really worked. That really worked well, where I could just be like, okay, I understand that, as an entrepreneur, for example, I understand that other people are servicing the same audience, other people are making products or having services or whatever. So there's competition. So what do I do about that? I'm just going to outwork everyone. I'm just going to work so much harder. And that generally works, right? You can be like, yeah, I'm just, whatever it is, I'm putting out more or better content than the other person. I'm putting more effort into making a higher quality product. I'm putting more effort into customer service. I'm just working so hard that nobody else can keep up.
Yeah.
And this works, and often it leads to burnout. It's quite self-destructive kind of thing to do, but it works.
Yeah.
But what happened to me is, interestingly, that I then came to a tipping point, or I came to like a chapter a chapter transition in my life where that story ended, and I learned the hard way, this is not working for me anymore. I can put so much effort into stuff, I can absolutely break myself against something. If it's not meant to happen, it's not going to happen. And I'm still trying to recalibrate, because I've had this difficult experience of like, okay, the formula that I relied on to get here is not working anymore. I wish I could tell you what the perfect other formula is, but I'm still struggling with that.
What if we only decide on the things that are meant for us, and then we don't have to force any decisions?
But do we decide on the things that are meant for us? How much of a say do you actually have in this?
Yeah. Maybe we don't.
I have doubts. Yeah, I have doubts. So I came across a quote yesterday that I can't fully replicate, but it's basically, someone said something like, I'm almost 50, and the most important thing I've learned is that every weird interest you've ever had, everything you've ever learned, every little skill you've picked up, no matter how obscure, everything will come back and serve you at some point. No love is ever wasted, no matter how brief. And that really hit me, because this is an experience I very strongly had. If you look at the first, I don't know, let's say 20 to 30, if you look at the first 30 years of my life, it looks like I have no idea where I'm going. I'm doing one thing I was like so passionate about. I was on this career path of, in basically as a martial arts instructor, and everything in my life was pointing in that direction. Then I just completely walk away from that, do something totally different. Then I'm doing this entrepreneurial thing. This takes me in a direction, but even there I pivot like several times where it was like, why didn't you just keep going? And then again, I leave that behind and I do something totally different. And it could easily look like this guy has no idea what he's doing. He's wasting his time, But especially when I work with clients, or in this kind of live context, in a retreat or something, I will just see that all of this has given me all these resources that come up, where I'm like, yes, in that moment where I'm working with someone, especially if it's someone in crisis, or it's like we're really dropped in, it's almost like that's when I feel like all of this experience, all of the successes, all of the failures, all of the skills, it all matters. It all matters. And it's almost like the world has shaped me into who I am now so that I can show up like this here. But which again begs the question, how much of a choice do I have in all this?
Well, I feel like if we go with that belief further, then everything we're doing at any given moment is exactly what we should be doing, right?
That's the unfortunate conclusion, right? Because I don't like agreeing with, the hippie woo-woo chakra people.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, this is one of the things where it's like, it does kind of look like that.
Yeah, I'm still not fully in that wagon yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I want my free will, and I want to know that my decisions matter.
Yeah.
It's hard to give up, but I do love the book. The Surrender Experiment is my favorite book, and it's something I keep coming back to whenever I feel very tense and, bracing myself and gripping really hard. That wait, it might not, it might not work out the way I need it to work out, and that might even be better than what I expected.
Yeah. This is actually not. It doesn't mean you don't have free will, but it's all a bit paradoxical. But it's also, this is also something I think I'm not good at talking about yet. This whole thing of like everything is happening the way it's supposed to, and you're just part of the flow of life and don't worry about it, is something that my current experience of it is that the more kind of introspective work I do, the more time I spend like in meditation and things like that, the more I'm in a mode where that's just obvious. That's the obvious truth, of course. I do feel like if you just quiet down and pay attention, you're like, oh yeah, the Buddhists definitely got it right.
Yeah.
And it's self-evident. It really just requires that we pay attention to it. But then as soon as I go to my email inbox, you know, or whatever, like as soon as I look at a screen, I get pulled out of that presence again, and all of a sudden I'm in this frantic making things happen mode again. And I can't really explain I can't really explain the paradoxical nature of, you know, free will while everything is playing out just as it has to. I can't explain that. It's just I can experience it.
Yeah.
I can experience the truth of it.
Yeah.
And then like as soon as I try to put it into words, I'm lost, you know?
I would love to go on my own surrender experiment one day. You know, of actually giving myself at least a year of literally not making any decisions that make any sense, of just going with my gut with everything. But I do feel like I would want to have some kind of financial support or something that is already set, to have like that safety net so I can feel comfortable and not get in my head. So I don't have the story of I'm wasting a year of my life.
That is not what surrender looks like.
Yeah, I know. I know.
So I don't know if I told you about this. One of the teachers I really look up to was called Rex Rafik. He was talking about how he spent, I think, a year following his heart. And as a very specific, and I think he has, he learned from a Sufi teacher. The Sufis are very much about the heart. From my understanding, it's like, you have like different schools of whatever spiritual worldviews, and for example, most people have heard of like the 7 chakras, right? But then, and where you have like these energy centers, and you have various meanings associated with them, and so on. And you have, in Celtic models, it's basically just 3. It's like head, heart, and root. And I think the Sufis are pretty much just one. It's just the heart. So they really
basic.
yeah, they really narrow in, like, this is the one that matters. And I mentioned this as is like part of their model, and there's a lot of like cultivation of energy, or whatever you want to call it, cultivation of that heart, right? That's kind of the context. He would be someone who has spent a lot of time cultivating and tuning into the heart, and then is saying, okay, I'm just going to follow my heart, meaning I'm not going to make decisions from my mind. And he literally, so he lived out of his car, and he would be like, I just follow my heart, and by the end of the day, I will have a place to sleep. But I don't book a hotel. I don't make a plan with my mind about it. I just see what happens. And by the end of the night, or by the end of the day, I will have a place to sleep. And he kept doing that. And literally just like wandering around, from place to place and from person to person, and finding himself in these different situations. But it requires full surrender, right? It requires, I wonder about this, because it requires so much courage, like actually fully surrendering and just saying, I'm not going to make any decisions here. That requires so much courage. It's crazy.
I'm going to try that.
When?
Now.
No.
Not about the sleeping in wherever.
Yeah.
But on the things that are on my plate right now. So I do need to get a specific outcome by a specific date. And I'm willing to try to just not force the outcome. Because it already feels uncomfortable for me. Something that should be fun at the moment is feeling like, I'm so tense. And that is defeating the purpose of what I'm trying to do. So I am going to try to just surrender. Although it is kind of weird how following the heart always feels like this is not really the thing that you're trying to do, right? You're tricking yourself. I mean, you have this nudge to go out and buy some ice cream, and you're just like judging the feeling because I'm just having like a sugar craving. That is something that I should not be having because sugar is bad for me and all of those things. And when you're actually going to get the ice cream, you might just bump into someone and just meet them there. And it's not about the ice cream necessarily. It's about getting yourself moving. And maybe for divine forces, that's the easiest path to wake you up. Like, we know she likes sugar, so let's get her a kick, right?
Yeah, and I've had this kind of experience as well, where also I'm still learning to distinguish the voice of, whatever you want to call it, intuition versus the voice of my mind. And I've had some very strong experiences with that, like sometimes following it, and I've had this kind of experience as well sometimes, where just following that intuitive little impulse led me into some incredible situations. Again, like, these kind of meeting just the right person at just the right time, and then having this magical experience with someone where, again, I've often felt like I will show up. I had this weird experience, for example, with someone where it ended up being essentially like a therapeutic session with someone that I had met like 20 minutes earlier, and it was just following the impulse of like, well, this is what's supposed to happen. And also I've had the experience repeatedly where I'll have the impulse, I'll have the little hit, and I'll ignore it for some reason, like you say, but I shouldn't have sugar or whatever, or whatever, there's some objection, right? There's some fear maybe. And then pretty quickly I realized, yeah, I really should have. Oh. Right?
Yeah,
But it's sometimes so hard.
it
Like
is.
in retrospect, it seems so obvious. It's like, oh, of course. The mode I was in here was the kind of graspy mind thinky mode.
Yeah.
Especially that, it shouldn't be that hard to recognize when your mind is doing noisy mind things.
Yeah, but when it's doing the noisy mind things and you're into it, it's hard to get out
Yeah,
because you're getting out with the mind, not with the body, right?
yeah.
It was also the case when you do follow the nudge, right? You're going to get the ice cream. But on the way there, you're telling yourself a story of like, maybe this is one of those moments where something is going to happen. And you start imagining, I don't know, some kind of scenario like, what if I just meet someone there and then the shop is empty and you're not meeting anyone? And they're like, okay, that was not it. This is not what, this is stupid. Like, this is just
Yeah.
me making up stories in my mind, keeping myself entertained. And then you kind of give up on following the nudges and you're like, I should get serious. Like, it was something
Yes.
I had work to do.
Yes,
And you
yes.
get yourself out of it. And I think it's in the expectation of it being in a specific shape, right? It has to look a certain way. Revelations only come when this happens. But in full honesty, sometimes it's like a song on the radio that sparks something, or it's always the unexpected.
You might also sometimes, I think, not even realize what you've done. Because I think that, I guess most people probably have some experience of that, where maybe at some point in your life, someone said something to you that made a huge difference. Maybe for them it was like a passing sentence,
Yeah.
It was just one of the many things they said, a passing sentence in a conversation, but somehow it just landed for you and you're like, wow, that changed my life.
Yeah.
Does that other person even know that they
No.
changed your life? They might not, right?
No.
So it's like, it might be that, and yeah, if you start overthinking it, I'm getting the intuitive nudge to do something big is about to happen. No, maybe something small but really important is about to happen and you won't even know.
I think what's happening is that we're trying to control the unknown,
Yeah.
I mean, we say we're surrendering to the unknown, but then we're trying to control it.
Yeah.
And we're trying to understand it and to analyze it, which is counterproductive. It's taking you out of the unknown.
Yeah. And if I can tell a cool story about it, did it happen?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And for me, a big part of this is also just I've become much less goal-oriented, which is a very unusual thing to do in our culture. I feel like we have such an incredibly goal-oriented culture. And I've noticed that more and more I'm just like letting go of even the idea that, everything I do has to be aimed at a certain purpose. I think that also belongs in this category, right? As long as you have the goal-oriented thinking, you're always like, well, where's the payoff? Where's the story arc? Where's the thing that we're accomplishing? Yeah. But if we look at it as like, the grand design of life, the flow of life where stuff is happening, it's probably much more subtle than that. It's not always this kind of A to B, cause and effect.
Yeah.
Do the thing to reach the goal.
They say that, you've set the right goal if it excites you. And if you want to spontaneously start working on it right now and not when the conditions are perfect. So that's how you know if you're setting the right size of a goal, right? Is it ambitious enough that it gets me moving because I actually want the outcome? Or if it's small enough that I can actually see myself doing the work and getting there. And it might come in useful with this as well, because sometimes we set goals we think we should be having, and then we wonder why everything feels like a struggle and we're not in alignment. And then other times, goals are not, a problem in the alignment. They're actually part of it.
Yes.
So that's why it's so confusing. You don't really know, like,
Yes.
should I set goals? Should I not? And I tend to use different words for them. I tend to use intentions for the more, I'm trying to see if this is in alignment. So it's an intention and it's not necessarily a goal. Because if an intention doesn't work out, then it's just that the intention changed in the meantime. That's fine. It's allowed. Whilst having a goal is either it's a failure or
Right.
it's a win.
Or I think a good sign is if you want to do something, even if it doesn't help you achieve some big outcome. You know, if you're like, well, I would want to do this even if it doesn't turn into a huge successful business, or even if no one acknowledges me for it or something. I just want to do it anyway. I think that's a pretty good sign. And you know what you said before, I do think, but this is also very uncomfortable. I think this is true, but it's a very uncomfortable truth, is that very often, if someone is struggling with procrastination, what we're looking for is really like, how can I force myself to do something I'm not supposed to do? Because you're just working on the wrong thing. You're trying to force yourself to do something you're not meant to do. And it's similar with, it's like with the goals, it's, oh, why does this feel so hard? And how do I change my goal setting or my productivity routine or whatever to achieve this thing? It's like, maybe you're just working on the wrong thing. It's not supposed to feel like this. It's not supposed to feel like I have to force myself through some structured approach of, I'm doing my productive work on this thing and forcing myself to do the thing and trying to remember that I want to reach this goal in order to stay motivated.
Yeah,
So
I read them every day.
It's not supposed to feel like that. But that's a really unpleasant truth, because also, I think this also applies a lot to learning. If you find it super hard to motivate yourself to learn something, you're probably trying to learn something that you're not supposed to learn. Because actually, and this is something I noticed after school. In school, I always struggled because I'm really bad at forcing myself to learn things I'm not interested in. But it turns out I'm very good at learning things I'm interested in. And so I have learned a lot, including a lot of very, even if you like wag the finger of economic responsibility at me, it's like, look, I've created economic value with the things I've learned. It just wasn't the things that people tried to force me to learn in school.
So why do you think the same ideas keep revisiting you? So I'm going to give an example. I've always felt very drawn to create content, not necessarily as a content, but I want to have people come in to my life story. I want them to be part of it in a way. And I feel like I've always been a storyteller, or someone who documents, or someone who just likes to, I don't know, make my life in a way semi-public, because it gives me a sense of meaning, it gives me a sense of control of how I portray the story, and so forth. So it's giving me a lot, and I've always wanted to do more of it. And I've always thought of like, I should start a YouTube channel. I should take TikTok seriously. I should do all of these things, but I'm not really doing them. So, but I still have that identity, and it's a constant voice in my head that is, pulling me toward it. And I'm not sure if I should interpret it as being like, it's clearly something you should be doing, because otherwise you would have forgotten about it a long time ago. And it's not something that is actively keeping on pulling it toward it. But then again, like, why am I not on that path already?
Yeah.
If it was something that would have been like clearly my calling, I would have already been doing so much more, right?
The question I would examine here is there a wound there? Because you can have a desire or a pursuit or an interest that comes from a wounded place. So it could be something like, I'm just making this up, right? But let's say someone is like, I want to create content. Maybe what's going on is that making content and then getting people commenting on it and likes and stuff gives you a sense of validation that feeds a wounded part of you that somehow, felt neglected or something in childhood, whatever, right? But it can be, the drive can come from this wounded place. I desperately want this thing. And that, I think, then can create a conflict, because maybe I don't actually want to make YouTube videos. I just want the validation. And so then it's always like, oh, I don't really want to do this, but I have to, or it keeps coming back because I want the validation. And in that case, it's like, if you were to heal that, if you could get that wounded part of you to let go, and you no longer had that need of validation. It's just like, I'm actually not interested in making YouTube videos at all. Conversely, it could be that you have an actual motivation or a calling or something to be a storyteller, and you keep putting it off, you keep procrastinating because there's a wound about, oh no, it's not okay for me to be seen, it's not okay for me to take up space, or there's something about, like, it could be a people-pleasing thing, right? It's like, oh no, I can't say things that might upset someone. So do you see what I'm saying here? It's like on either side, it could be, let's say, a motivation that actually comes from something unhealed, but it could also be a true calling that is being blocked by something unhealed. And one of the ways to find out is to essentially try and listen to, like, what does the voice or the feeling in my body feel like that's telling me this? So and I think everybody has to spend time listening in to learn to determine the different qualities of voice. I'll just give you an example from mine. What I notice is that for me, the stuff that comes from the mind, the stuff that comes from wounded parts, often feels quite frantic and noisy. And the stuff that comes from like a deeper place or from the heart, or that's an intuitive calling, feels like very calm, very, very quiet. So the difference would be something like, the wounded or mind, the thinky mind part is like, I should really make a YouTube video, because if I make this YouTube video, it'll help my funnel, and then I build that funnel, and then I have the product, and if I do this enough, and if I make at least 2 a week, and then I can have this growth trajectory, blah, 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 right? Whereas the intuitive thing is to be like, here's an idea, make this video. Mm-hmm. Right? And learning to distinguish that can, I think, help figure out, like, is this coming from a wounded place or from an authentic place?
I feel like I have both. I feel like that's why it's so confusing, because I feel like my mind is trying to make it safe, for it to work, for it to be perfect. But I feel like there is something more in there. I feel like there's a quality of togetherness that comes with exposing yourself. I feel like then we're all in this together, and I'm not alone in my life, which is something that is clearly from a part of me that wants that connection desperately. And I don't know if I would call it wounded, or if it's just basic human need, but in the digital world, right?
Yeah. Well, you do the women's circles where you have, I'm guessing, perhaps it gives you an in real life situation where you have a sense of togetherness and you have a sense of telling your story and so on. Does that reduce your desire to make content online or increase it?
It reduced it.
Okay.
I mean, I've got my needs fulfilled by the circle.
Yeah.
So I've been not really creating anything at all lately.
Right. So if you were 100% sure that making content online is never going to give you more of what you're getting in the circle, it's never going to bring more people to your circle or something, would you still want to do it?
That's the thing, because I always can only perceive success as being something that is publicly, like, has this public quality. I've never been able to untie it from my understanding of success.
So am I understanding this correctly? But is the circle, the in-person circle, is that public enough to count as success, or does it not quite count as success for you?
No.
Oh.
I don't know. It's very weird. I don't know why I'm like this. Why?
You have a case of human. So that's interesting. So the circle, how many women do you have in your circle? Because it's quite big now, no?
Yeah. So there are like 60 in total, and we're in a break right now, so I can really tell how many are active, but
okay,
we can say like 30 active members.
Yeah. And this grew fairly quickly, right? You started this and it grew pretty quickly from like 1 weekly thing to 3 weekly things and all that. So, and all that somehow doesn't feel like real success. Is that what I'm hearing?
It feels like the little thing I'm doing to like the minimum. It feels like like I'm doing the bare minimum to get by while I'm planning my big
Yeah.
public thing.
Right. Interesting. I didn't know that. Interesting.
Although I want this to grow, I feel like this is amazing,
Yeah.
but I feel like since I'm not putting my entire focus on it, it has room to breathe. I'm not too attached to it, to strangle it, because I'm
Yeah.
busy thinking about other things.
Your world conquest is what's really getting your attention, and you're
Yeah.
just doing the circle outside.
Yeah, then I get to be more relaxed and detached when I do it, and I feel like that is contributing to it being great.
Yes, I bet. Yes. Yeah, you're not smothering it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it feels like that's a similar thing where, like we talked about with the whole content thing, right? It's almost like you have to get out of your own way to produce your best work. And maybe for you, being obsessed with whatever else you're focused on helps you show up in like as your best self in the circle. If you
Yeah. So one thing that I found quite interesting in my relationship to money lately was that focusing on money was something I've never allowed myself to do. I always saw it as something that is, I don't know, evil, I don't know, bad, whatever. And for some time, I've started focusing solely on it. Like, what if, because I was in a situation where, like, I just need to make sure I have what I need. So I'm just going to prioritize this. It doesn't have to be a lot, it doesn't have to be for a long time, but we just have to get this out of the way and then we can move on. And by focusing on purely the financial aspect of it, it got me out of my own way. Because then the end goal was not creating the content, the end goal was making the money. And I would do great content as a byproduct. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like you're distracting yourself successfully somehow.
Yeah. And it gets me moving. So I feel like the money incentive for a society is what it is actually helping. I mean, most people I know who don't have the need for money are somehow lost or struggling spiritually. And when I was just focused on, like, I just have to get this and it's quite easy and I can just figure it out, it made it so much tangible and I got so much, such a sense of progress that I was having no existential issues at all.
I think that it's one of those things with money. I've had both situations. I've had the situation where I was too careless about it, and I made some stupid decisions. I lost a bunch of money. I've also had the situation where I was like grasping too hard, and that, funnily enough, also led me to make bad decisions and lose money. But additionally, it was extremely stressful. And I wrote about this at the time. I wrote an article that was titled something like "My pursuit of money is the worst thing in my life." Because I realized that so many things in my life were just going amazing, but I was so stressed because I was too focused on money in kind of a grasping way. So it's an interesting like balancing act, right? Because I feel like what you're describing is it's a focus on money without being like desperate, which I think is kind of hard to pull off.
I found it fun. I found it refreshing.
Yeah.
Because that was easy. I could be naughty for a minute,
Yeah.
I could just be materialistic. I could just want that because I want it.
Yeah.
And then it would feel kind of like getting my power back than trying to be like this evolved human being. And
Yeah, I mean, most of us have a totally screwed up relationship with money, I think, because we grow up with all kinds of stories. And it's one of those things that's potent. For me, it's, sex and money are two things that I think are really, really potent for almost everyone. Because unfortunately, we tend to all grow up with strange ideas and stories, and there's also a lot of like shame and shadowy stuff with those things. That's also what makes it fascinating. It makes it fascinating to work with, because it's almost like you can't bring up the topics of sex and money without without people being activated. People have strong opinions, strong feelings about it.
So love and violence is our first workshop. Sex and money is the second.
I mean, actually, violence is another one of those. Like, so I recently, actually, just yesterday, I was talking to a friend of mine about this, where we were talking about using violence essentially in the context of men's work. It could be incredibly healing and cathartic to put men in a situation where they're punching each other in the face with boxing gloves or something like that. Same thing, right? It's just so potent; it will activate everyone. So so maybe it's love, violence, and money.
Because love and sex are the same now, right?
I think sex is, ideally, it is a love thing. Unfortunately, sometimes it's a violence thing. It's a power thing, right? But ideally, it's a love thing. There was another thing I wanted to touch on. You were saying, like, successfully distracting yourself. This is something that a lot of people reflected back to me from something I taught a long time ago, is the idea of rolling hills, where instead of having one goal that's right here that you're trying to achieve, that you almost have, like, when you've climbed this hill, you already know what the next hill is, and so on. Because I've noticed that in a similar way, right, well, someone might, or people would remark that, for a while I was essentially the CEO of my company and I was doing all the content. And I was churning out more content than a lot of people who were only trying to do content while also running my company. And people would ask me, like, how do you do this? And I realized, I think it's maybe because I have more to do. If you're sitting here going, my goal is to write one blog post this week, it's this huge task. But I'm like, no, I'm going to publish 2 posts this week. And I have a whole pile of other work to do. So that it shrinks the importance and the size of the goal of publishing a thing. And I think it's also like I'm successfully distracting myself from being in overthinking mode and grasping too hard. It's just like, I'm just going to get this done.
Yeah.
And that probably makes my work better in many cases as well.
Yeah, not giving yourself a chance to overthink it.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of mothers tell me the same, that ever since they have babies, they do more with their time than they used to, although they have like a fraction of it, and that it's quite a lot more satisfying. They only have like 2 hours for themselves in a whole day, and in those 2 hours they get so much done, and they're like, just no bullshit, just I'm gonna enjoy every second of this hour. And I've always been kind of jealous of that, because I don't want to put myself in a hard situation so I can survive, right?
Yeah.
Because it is quite, I don't know, counterintuitive that when you get to Maslow's pyramid at the top, you're fucking inventing problems to solve, right? Like you have nothing to solve anymore. Now you're contemplating every day of like all these things that make you so unhappy. And when you were surviving and just didn't know how to put food on your table, I was trying to just make like 1,000 euros and then I'll be fine. I was happier then. So I do believe like you can be happy at every stage of the pyramid. It doesn't have to be like that. But I do feel like the brain is used to solving problems. And if you don't give it worthwhile problems to solve, it will find others.
Which is something that I think we can keep playing the game and keep giving ourselves more problems to solve. We can also really investigate that part of the mind, and because I've just noticed that for me that has gone quieter and quieter, and I'm more and more at peace with just existing in the current moment. And I think it's also interesting that, from what I understand, like from very advanced meditators who have maybe gotten to a complete dissolution of the self, it doesn't actually stop them from wanting to keep playing the game. So they'll still be like, oh yeah, I'm still working on this thing or building this business or doing whatever. It's just the personal drama is not playing out anymore. But it's almost like I might as well do this. Is fun to do it. I think it comes back again to like, this is fun and engaging. And I think that's actually one of the benefits of sitting in meditation for so long, that you realize there's nothing, and I can just sit here and there's nothing I need to do, nothing I need to achieve. and then you can go do things and it comes from a different source of motivation than trying to prove yourself or trying to whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm somewhere in between those, right? I haven't done that much meditation that that the voice in my head has disappeared, but it's definitely gotten a lot quieter.
I feel like life would be so much more fun if we didn't have so much conflict around the things we wanted,
Yeah.
I want attention, I want to be seen. And it without coming with all of these layers of shame of like, who am I to want to be seen? Like, am I good enough?
Yeah.
Like, is that shallow? Is it gonna hurt me? Isn't it even more, valuable if you do it with nobody knowing? Like, because then it's not
Yeah.
ego driven.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
there's so
Is
much
your
thought.
pursuit noble enough?
Yeah.
Right? Are you doing the right thing?
Yeah, and all of this chatter is just stopping you from doing like actual things in your life. And if you're on Earth, then you should be doing stuff. Like you should be enjoying your time here.
It's true. I think it's interesting how we can make ourselves feel so guilty for wanting things, even though we don't choose to want those things. It kind of just happens to you. And I had this. I definitely had this to some extent with money as well, where it took me a long time to get used to the idea that I can just spend money for myself just because I want to. I don't always have to justify it with some grand purpose, or it doesn't always have to be like the most ethical possible thing I can do with my money in the moment. But especially for me, a big one was with anything around sexuality, right? Like sexual desires, like being able to admit that, yeah, I just want this. I don't know. I think I've gotten a lot better at almost like allowing myself, like, yeah, I'm a little bit of a rascal. It's like this is not necessarily a noble or whatever quality. It's just something I want. But it's unbelievable how much guilt and shame. Like for me, this was a massive backlog of difficult emotions I had to work through to get to the point where I'm like, yeah, I like sex, I want sex, and that's something I can admit.
Yeah. Coming back to what we're trying to pinpoint earlier on with when we do take that decision finally, like that inner conviction that this is what I want, it's always without the conflict, right?
Yeah.
It's when you're like, I don't even care anymore. It's just what I want. And then everything goes quiet.
Yeah. Yeah, and it does make me wonder, because I've had this experience as well, or I've had situations where I was like, maybe struggling with something for a long time, where I'm thinking, if I really fully decided I'm going to make this happen, if I made a full decision, I could make this happen. And big part of the reason I'm struggling is I'm just not that committed to it.
Yeah. So then you should either not fool yourself that you want it because you don't, or you should actually do the thing, and then it's a commitment.
Yeah. So, and to me, this is why the whole idea of integrity, or this kind of understanding, or this relationship with honesty. So when I talk about integrity, what I mean is like having a very strong relationship with honesty, which means being able to detect what is honestly actually going on. That has been so valuable for me, because it's the kind of thing that allows me to, for example, to understand, am I motivated to make this content because I want validation, because I want to seem important, because I want to seem clever or whatever? Or is there something else going on? And you can only have that level of honesty with yourself if the uncool answer is allowed.
Yeah.
If I can say, yes, I want to make this content because I want validation, period. And I don't have to tell myself a story about it. That's it, right? Only when that's allowed can you have the honest answer. Otherwise, you're always going to be expending all this effort bullshitting yourself.
Yeah. So why am I not creating content?
Hold on. I think what we need to do is we need to feed this entire conversation into ChatGPT and be like, okay, so
figure it out.
Why are you not making content? Well,
actually, I think that doesn't even matter.
Okay.
I think why questions that start with why are not productive.
Okay, let's not do that. Let's not ask questions to start with why. That's interesting. That's an interesting take. Why are they unproductive? Oh no. No. If you did the challenge of publishing to TikTok every day, after everything we've talked about now, how does that feel in your system? The idea of doing that.
It doesn't feel committed yet.
What's in the way?
I feel like I secretly still wanted to kind of blow up. And there's a big chance that's not going to happen. And I know it's going to be uncomfortable. And I don't know if I'm willing to put in more than a month into doing that. But the whole vision, the whole imagination is taking me to this scene where I like doing it, where it feels like it's me and all of my friends online who are updated with my life, and it's great. And they don't seem to be in the same story.
Okay. Yeah, say more about that. So the scene where you're enjoying doing this, and there's what you were describing sounds like there's some community factor to this. But that is not the same story as the one where you're like grinding and making content every day and hoping it blows up.
Yeah. It feels like it's kind of like a selfish pursuit. Like, who's gonna care that I have a perfectionistic tendency and I'm doing this challenge with myself? Like, that is not really bringing people in. I think it's also coming down to the, that idea of showing up as the person who already has it. This is showing up as the person who desperately wants it.
And what is the it here? What do you desperately want?
That sense of community.
Okay.
Of course, it's also tied to like large numbers, like millions of people seeing the things, and it being easily an audience that I can then move, to do things, and
Could you be motivated by the idea of there's something you're going to be better at if you do 30 days of this? By the end of it, regardless of how many people have watched your TikToks and all this other stuff, you might be much better at getting out of your own way and creating content authentically, or you might be much better at storytelling, or you might be... Is there a skill upgrade where you can be like, that is something I'm excited about?
for it to be worth it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm telling myself all of those things, right? I'm telling myself that this is an exercise of authenticity and, a self-discovery journey. It might turn out to be one, but for now, it feels like I'm selling myself the story.
Yeah.
It's something I should want.
It's something you should want.
I should want to be more authentic, but in reality, I just want to be perfect.
Oh.
You
That's okay. There's a conflict there for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just want to be perfect.
And I wanted to just not be that hard, I guess.
What would you get from if you were perfect? What would happen? What would that give you?
Well, it would probably give me a huge conflict of like, this is not authentic. Now I have this huge issue of how will I rebrand myself?
Would you like to have that issue?
No, it would probably suck. Because then it's going to be like a huge opportunity cost, right? Because I have like the millions who know me as being this perfect face.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, how does that feel if like millions of people are adoring you for being so perfect? Like the most perfect woman I've ever
Oh my God, great.
encountered.
Yeah.
And then you can do your pivot to authenticity. How would that feel?
Better.
Ah.
Wow.
Yeah. So what is it that currently makes you imperfect?
That takes so long for me to get to my point. Like, I speak so much, Jesus. And like, why do I not just say the thing?
Why do you not just say the thing?
I don't know. I feel like maybe the thing is not important without the details.
So the thing that just popped into my mind is there's an article by Sasha Chapin, I don't know how to say his name, but the title of the article basically says it all, which is that if you have writer's block, maybe you should stop lying. And his premise is that he did coaching, like he would help writers improve their writing, right? And so he's saying that what he encountered frequently is that someone's like, I have writer's block, I don't know what to say next. But actually, what's going on is you're not allowing yourself to say what you really think. Because you have thoughts going through your head all day long, but you're self-censoring because, oh, this is inappropriate, or this is not interesting enough, or whatever. So this just popped into my mind for some reason.
No, this is good. You should stop lying. That really hit.
What would happen? What would happen if you stopped lying? Do you think you'd get to the point sooner if you stopped lying?
Probably. I'm so good at lying, I don't even know when I'm lying.
We lie to ourselves, right?
Yeah.
That's the tricky one. We lie to ourselves very convincingly.
I just had the thought while I was discussing my issue that I should be doing the opposite, right? I should embrace my need for being the perfect figure. Because right now I'm using it against me. I could just use it.
What would it look like if you embraced this?
Well, if it's exciting for me to have the perfect setup with the perfect light and the very beautiful video that I want to keep watching forever and ever, why don't I not? I mean, why do I put myself in the situation where I want it to be messy and hard and spontaneous if that's just not something that makes me feel comfortable?
Right.
You know? I feel like I'm going against myself right now.
Yeah. So how does that feel? How does the idea feel of making the
Great.
super aesthetic video?
Great.
Yeah.
Feels like, why the fuck not? Like, why am I not allowed to have that, you know?
Yeah.
Because it felt like I'm going to do this challenge for me to get unblocked so then I can invest in having that.
Right.
When I can just have that.
Yeah.
This is helping.
Oh no.
You're the mind architect right now.
I'm mind architecting you, yeah.
Doing the thing. Good thing we have a camera on.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm doing the thing that's true. All we're missing is an audience. So it certainly seems like it would be a good idea to like try it out, right?
Yeah.
You might as well try to make the perfect video. Or whatever, you might appeal to that perfection.
I like aesthetics. I just like them. That's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and you were right that of course there is appeal to that aesthetic. And especially, I saw a video yesterday, which was a guy talking about, I can't remember what it was called, but a certain kind of, not an LCD display, but a different display technology, like a retro display technology. This guy was just talking about this and had the most aesthetic close-up shots of all of these displays and the wiring and stuff. It's like pure aesthetic. This guy had me watching a 12-minute video about a display thing that I'm not interested in.
Yeah.
With pure aesthetics. So that definitely works, right? That definitely works. It's just that for me, I don't want to be doing that.
Yeah.
I think I should do the messy stuff, but maybe you shouldn't.
I feel like it's okay to give myself what I want, you know?
Yeah.
If that's what I want, then I can just have that. And if I feel like doing the messy stuff, I can do it because I'm already full. You know, my cup is full. I've already done the thing I want to.
Yeah. Because
I don't really want to be associated with frantic. I just got in my car. Oh, like this happened. Like
yeah.
Like yeah, I don't know. Although there is a lot of value in what we said of having the inspiration and just putting it out in the moment. So I do want to try it for that sake. And then if it takes off, then I can just use that subject and make it pretty. So it can be, I'm doing that for the other purpose, and then I have a good thing to distract myself.
Okay, if you think about the value of expressing the thing that inspired you in the moment, so you're responding immediately to the spark of inspiration. Does that make you want to do it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I have, here's where personal history fucks you up because you expect the same thing coming up again, right? I've had the moment of inspiration where I then got myself into filming it, and then the process of filming it and being self-critical of myself while I'm doing it ruined the whole thing. So I know how that feels, and I'm familiar with that, and it's happened sadly more times than the other way around.
Yeah. So always film it for your circle and not for the public.
Yeah.
Are you in voice recorded?
Yeah. I'm gonna spam my circle the next
Yeah.
month. Spam those ladies.
Something like that. I do want to point out that if what we're arriving at here is a solution, you did.
I do owe you money.
You do. Yes.
If this has worked.
Yes, if this has worked, you owe me a lot of money. No, no. That's good. What was I about to say? If this, I do want to point out, and I don't know if you know this, but it's like you solved your own problem entirely. Like you really talked yourself through this whole situation during our conversation.
I thought you were doing the magic.
No, I think if you really, I think you could probably. I'm way too lazy to do this, but someone who would want to could make like a cut of this that would be very funny because you're literally just giving yourself every answer that you need as we're talking, which is generally what happens. Which is like which I do think that that's something I'm good at. In the sense that I'm not sure if I'm contributing anything, but people in my presence tend to solve their own problems.
Yeah. You're like a crystal.
Okay. I'm not sure what to make of that, but yes, sure. And that is where we decided to conclude our conversation. We wanted to make this as raw and unfiltered and authentic as possible, and I think that came across. I'd love to know your thoughts on this conversation. What stuck with you the most? Are there any lingering questions on your mind? What is it that you take away from this? So please go ahead and leave a comment below. I'd love to hear from you. Also, if you want to experience some of the magic that Diana brings into her spaces and workshops, you have a chance coming up. She is the host and organizer of an upcoming retreat that we call the Power Couples Weekend, where I will be facilitating alongside with internationally acclaimed couples coach Eri Kardosh. Eri is an amazing teacher, and I am super excited to be facilitating alongside these two wonderful women. I will leave a link below where you can learn more about this retreat that is coming up in November and is taking place in Transylvania in Romania. This retreat will blend relational and self-development skills and some of the things that you also saw me talk about and practice a little bit. This awareness and communication practice that you saw some glimpses of in this conversation. And then, of course, we have the expertise of Eri, which is all about how couples can strengthen their relationship, deepen their intimacy, and how the relationship and your relational life can become this catalyst that really activates and energizes everything else in your life. This is a very exclusive retreat with only a small number of seats available. So if this piques your interest, check out the link below to learn more about the Power Couples Weekend. And with that, that is all for today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.